Thank you for joining the Change I Am Possible, which is India's first Future Tech podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me Mr. Karthik Raghavendran, who's the co-founder of Neurostellar, which is a brain-computer interface startup. It's one of the first few startups in the space of BCI. I'm excited because understanding the human brain be completely transformational for mankind. And some of the biggest companies in the world are working actively on that. A 3-pound brain is the most awesome organ in the body, which controls the entire nervous systems. We've got around 70 billion neurons and 100 trillion synapses. The way they fire and wire gives rise to all of our 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Companies such as Kernel and Control Lab and Neuralink, Elon Musk company, is working on building an architecture where they will be able to capture the structural and functional capabilities of a brain and then eventually map it out onto our computers with zeros and ones. And once we do that, we'll be creating a seamless language between our brains to the computer. We will be merging with the computers. We will be merging with the machines. What would that world look like? Well, I don't think I can fathom at this point in time. But I can definitely say that once we have a working brain-computer interface, the entire world will be completely transformed. So Karthik, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So, let's start with giving a brief introduction on who Karthik Raghavendra is and your background.
So hi, Eddie, thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. I've also seen many of your previous podcasts where you have invited a lot of global speakers who have discussed on deep technologies and futuristic technologies in various aspects. So I'm so excited for this, and thanks again for inviting me to this podcast. So to give a brief introduction about myself, I'm Karthik, the founder and CEO of Neurostellar, which is a neurotechnology startup that is currently incubated at IIT Madras in Chennai. And I'm also the co-founder and chapter lead of NeurotechX India, which is an international neurotechnology community that has around 6,000 plus members worldwide, including people from top neurotechnology corporations as well as top universities in the world. So the community has a major mission of advancing the progress of neurotechnology worldwide, and I'm leading that community in India. So that's sort of a brief background about myself.
Thank you, Karthik. Really appreciate it. And yeah, this is a humble effort to create awareness and educate people on exponential technologies and how a country could be completely transformed for the good if we start leveraging exponential tech. So let's start with Neurostellar. What is Neurostellar? What is the problem that you're trying to solve with your startup?
So, Neurostellar is basically a deep technology startup where we envision to build products that can interface brain and machines for the betterment of humanity. So currently, as a first product, we are trying to build a smart wearable brain monitoring device that can act as a diagnostic tool for monitoring neurological disorders. So we are currently focused on one particular disorder called epilepsy. So a major goal of this particular product is to address the problem of misdiagnosis of a particular disorder called epilepsy, which is around 35 to 40%. One of the major reasons for this misdiagnosis is sort of multiple loopholes in the current diagnostic process, where it starts from lack of better diagnostic tool and the current systems lack better signal quality, as well as there's a huge shortage of experienced, skilled EEG technicians in the country, as well as shortage of neurologists in the country, which leads to a wholesome problem of this. So we are trying to build a better diagnostic tool, which is a smart wearable electroencephalogram for monitoring epilepsy, as well as an AI-assisted tool that can sort of auto-read EEGs and annotate specific abnormalities in the data, which can sort of assist the neurologist in interpretation by reducing the time and also improving the accuracy.
So super. So tell me, when do you think we'll get to see your product in the market? maybe like a prototype, working prototype ready in the market. And there's companies around the world who are working with brain computer interface for healthcare, and they're leveraging it for not just diagnosis but also for treatment. But you're saying that you're going to be leveraging it only for diagnosis. Would you like to kind of talk a little bit more about that?
So we're currently on the prototype stage where so our company got recently incorporated. So we are sort of in the early stages of the startup. So we're currently building our first prototype in hardware as well as in the software. So first alpha version of the prototype will be ready in 3 to 4 months. And so there are two components, as I already mentioned, software and hardware. So hopefully the whole product will be ready in 2 to 2.5 years from now. Since it also has some clinical trials and regulations, the whole product will be ready in 2 to 2.5 years of timeline.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the Neurostellar team and what each of them brings to the table?
So we have a very interesting multidisciplinary team working on this particular vision of Neurostellar. So I'm the CEO of the company. So I basically deal with business strategies as well as working on technology, as well as working on understanding the product and needs of the product, and also working with the technical team in order to understand and also build this technology. So we have a technical team as well. So we have software engineers, hardware engineers as a team, and we have business development people. And we have a very strong group of advisors where we have a scientific advisor is the past president of Indian Academy of Neurology, who's Dr. A.V. Srinivasan. So he's my mentor as well as an advisor. And also our key opinion leader is a very renowned epileptologist in the country. And also a business advisor is like very renowned in the industry. So she's the past CEO of Musicma. So we have a very strong group of advisors and a very multidisciplinary team which is working on building this particular product.
Thank you for sharing the detail, and the team looks super exciting, and I wish everyone comes together and put in their inputs and create something fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to the prototype. Would you like to talk a little bit about a vision? What's the vision for Neurostellar?
So basically we all started with one vision, which is to address neurological as well as mental health issues. So neurology, psychiatry is one of our futuristic goals, developing products in that arena. Better diagnostic tools as well as better therapeutic tools in that arena. And the second part of the technology, as all of us are very super excited, is the brain-computer interface part, which is not just in the healthcare domain, but also something that excites all of us in terms of interacting with our ecosystems. And things like that have really fascinated us. So so just to sum it up, we have two major arenas where we'd like to get our futuristic products on. One is to build products in the neurology and psychiatry space, which can sort of bring hope to all the people living in this world, and also build technologies and products that can really excite all of us in terms of brain-computer interface applications, that we can sort of interact with a lot of things, as well as telepathy sort of applications, which has really excited all of us. But since even though it's in the nascent stage, but we are super excited as everyone in this world.
The reason I started this podcast was to be a voice and a platform for entrepreneurs such as yourself who are asking deep questions and probing the term what we call impossible. Depression, mental or neurological disorders is one of the biggest problem we face today. And because of COVID and the stress that's been added has obviously taken those numbers more up. Eventually, if we are able to understand a brain, the entire brain, how it functions, and if we are able to somehow figure out which part of the brain causes a certain mental or neurological disorder, and possibly maybe figure a way to cure that, I think the world will look completely different. More power to you guys, and I hope that the investor and the government and the support comes together for entrepreneurs such as yourself, because in India we keep on complaining. We say that we don't have a single global tech startup from India, Well, the reason we don't have it because we do not support a bold and audacious entrepreneurs. I wish that the government and our investor community comes together and extends support to a deep tech and future tech startups and entrepreneurs who are trying to solve these bold, audacious vision. I know as an investor, it's a little scary, but if we want to build a better India, I think we need to place our bets on these entrepreneurs who are trying to solve some of the biggest problems. And I hope this message goes through. Now, Karthik, tell me, this, in all fairness of brain, we understand so little about our brain. The entire technology is in such a nascent state. What made you choose brain computer interface? What made you pick brain computer interface? And what is it that about the field that excites you the most?
So as you mentioned, yes, we are one of the very few startups present in India in the BCI and Neurotech space. Because since already the field is nascent and there are a handful of companies in US and Europe and also in Australia working on this particular technologies. Major reason is the field is nascent as well as the commercialization of the products currently is not very on a large scale. But one thing that excites all of us who are in this space is the future. So we are super excited about the potential applications of neurotech devices and products in the future. So that's the major reason why we sort of landed in this particular arena. And that's what motivates me. I'm so excited about building futuristic products. And that gives a great rewarding system when we are able to build technologies that can impact a lot of lives. And I strongly believe neurotechnology has that potential. And soon the world will realize the level and leverage the potential of neurotechnology.
So, how do you think a brain computer interface will be able to transform the world once it matures? And which other areas, the sectors or industries, according to you, are going to see the deepest impact or disruption?
So, currently, brain computer interfaces have sort of crossed the research grade arena into commercialization. Majorly because technologies of brain computer interfaces have been able to potentially understand and interpret brain signals a bit. So, once you sort of try to understand and interpret brain signals, then you'll be able to see a lot of commercialization windows getting opened up for this particular arena. So BCS has a lot of potential in terms of, even in healthcare, I already mentioned about BCA has been used for rehabilitation for neurological patients, for stroke patients, as well as the future of psychiatry. I strongly believe the future of psychiatry lies in BCIs and neurotechnology, majorly because it gives a window in order to understand and quantify the brain, as well as quantifying the psychiatric disorders, which can really help in terms of neurofeedback, where once a person is affected by depression or anxiety and anything, brain computer interfaces, even other neurotech devices can sort of quantify your brain signals and understand and make us realize that we have a depression, we have anxiety, and then give sort of feedback in terms of it might be games or it might be other kinds of inputs, which can sort of help us in giving those feedback to get the normal brain states. I think that's one potential application in healthcare. Apart from healthcare, I think BCIs have been used in gaming, where now gaming is growing a lot. VR and AR getting introduced into that arena. BCI is also getting into that pool because a gamer controlling the game's avatar using brain is sort of very super interesting space. And I've spoken to people who are working in the neurogaming industry. They sort of develop potential interesting products which are coming up. I think that's one potential arena. And also, so recently I spoke to somebody who's working on neuro architecture, where sort of quantifying the aesthetics, like you take a large sample of like 1,000 people and try to capture their brain's activity when they see things around you, and then sort of quantifying the aesthetics. What I mean is, so once you see different structures and things around you, how your brain reacts to it, how's your attention level, how it attracts you, that can be sort of quantified, which can act as a feedback for the architect to design new spaces, new interesting spaces. And also, yeah, that's one potential arena where neurotech can come into play. I'm saying like the whole of neurotech and BCIs. And also, currently in the BCIs and Neurotech are in the healthcare space majorly. It has a major market share when it comes to product-based things in the healthcare. But hopefully, as we go on, so imagine this, like putting your BCIs and sort of controlling your ecosystem, controlling your homes, calling somebody just by thinking about them. So these are some very interesting applications that can definitely be done once we build better neural interfaces and better quantification and interpretation of brain signals can be done. I think those are the potential applications. I think definitely the future is going to be very interesting with BCIs and neurotechnology.
Yes, there is some fantastic innovations happening in the brain-computer interface. You mentioned the virtual reality game. There's a company called Neurological that they have built a virtual reality game, and you can play the game with just your thought alone. And then obviously Control Lab, which is a Facebook acquired startup, they've built a neural wristband which uses EMG to translate your neural signals into actions. With that you can do a little bit of typing, swiping, or playing games and stuff like that. So we getting into a super awesome space. But you know what? Technology is a double-edged sword. With its great transformational capabilities, there's a downside which can create great disruption. And brain-computer interface, I think it's one of the technologies. Once it matures, it's gonna open up a big can of worms. So, would you like to address the moral and ethical implications you see arising once a brain-computer interface completely matures?
So currently, when you say anything about neural interfaces, the first question that pops in my mind is, what if somebody is able to read my thoughts? What if somebody is able to track what I think and things like that, like moral and ethical issues? So first of all, there is a lack of understanding in certain places where they think BCIs or neurotech devices can sort of read your thoughts. So first of all, that's a false statement because so it is just the signals that neurotech devices read is just a reflection of what is happening in your brain. It cannot exactly say what is happening in your brain. However, there are certain devices coming up which can sort of trying to visualize what you think inside the brain, but that's still in a very nascent stage. So there are potential issues, I agree, and also ethical issues. But since every new technology faces it, so once the technology becomes matured from nascent stage, every new technology has its own cons in terms of data security, data privacy, and also ethical issues. So currently since the technology is maturing, there are certain governing bodies in US and Europe which is sort of framing policies and how neural data can be used and also how it has to be handled. So once those policies are sort of framed and we have a sort of a ethical framework for utilizing neurotech and BCI products, I think that's going to open a lot of window along with the safety measures with the technology. I think that's going to be the future.
Can you explain to my audience the difference between an invasive versus a non-invasive brain-computer interface, and what would be the pros and cons of each of them?
So since you mentioned there are two kinds of BCIs, one is invasive and non-invasive. So non-invasive is sort of any device that's placed on your scalp, sort of outside the skull. Invasive is sort of opening your skull and keeping it exactly on the surface of the brain. So there are potential pros and cons for both of these. Take invasive BCIs. So since it's getting directly on the brain, it's able to get a better quality signal with higher bandwidth, and you'll get a lot of data from it. It's easier to quantify and interpret those signals since you're getting a lot of very accurate data. But when you see the cons of invasive BCIs, I think not everyone would be comfortable opening up their skull and keeping a BCI inside their heads since it's a surgical process. Whereas non-invasive has its own cons in terms of not so better signal quality when compared to invasive because there is some distortions since the brain signals has to come from the brain crossing the layers in between to the scalp and to the electrodes. So it has problems in terms of signal quality and bandwidth, but since invasive is also able to get some accurate signals from the brain, by implementing better artifact or noise cancellation algorithms. I think that has opened up a lot of potential applications in consumer electronics and even in diagnostic applications and monitoring applications. So invasive BCIs are mostly used in the space of in medical or healthcare domains where there's no hope for the patient unless we quantify the brain signals very accurately. Maybe example, before performing the surgery or even giving deep brain stimulation sort of thing, we need to get into invasive methodologies. But as of now, more people are going towards non-invasive for consumer electronics applications. But hopefully, once invasive PCI sort of gets matured and has crosses its ethical and sort of safety measures, it has its own safety measures. I think it can be used for a lot more applications apart from it is being used now.
What's the current state of the art is in with the innovation space in this sector, and could you share the tools, the technologies which is currently being used to read and write data from a brain?
Okay, so currently there are different technologies which are used to read brain signals, starting from electrophysiological techniques like EEGs and MRIs are being used. fMRI is being one of the interesting tools that have developed in the past 10 to 20 years is being used very actively in many portions of research because it's sort of able to quantify the brain structurally as well as functionally with a higher resolution. So yeah, there are certain interesting tools like that. MEG is there. FNIRS is one of the potential technologies that is used to quantify the brain signals. Yeah, there are a sum of technologies which are being used, but majorly when it comes to the commercialization part, majorly in the consumer electronics side, mostly FNIRS and EEG are being used because of its portability, its cost effectiveness, and its better accuracy also in quantifying the brain signals. But when it comes to deeper research side, fMRI is being majorly used because of its potential in getting structural and functional information very accurately. But since the device is expensive and it's also very bulky, it's not being used for commercial or consumer electronics related purposes. And when it comes to ECOG, which is electrocardiogram, where a measure of electrodes is being placed on the surface of your brain, that's what actually Neuralink and other invasive BCI companies are trying to do. It sort of more accurately reads your data and also feeds by stimulation. It can feed or interrupt your brain signals and introduce new set of electric potential or signals into your brain from outside. But I think that's still in the nascent stage, and now technologies are sort of maturing. But so by having more number of channels and more accurately recording the data, so ECOG sort of BCIs perform better than non-invasive BCIs, like with EEGs, which sort of records outside the brain. But I think there are different technologies which has different applications and different pros and cons. So hopefully, once the technology matures and portability as well as cost effectiveness comes up, I think different windows is going to open up for different technologies.
This technology in such a nascent stage, but there is so many companies around the world and entrepreneurs who are working on solving this problem, building a brain computer interface which will be able to kind of read, write the entire structural and functional capabilities of a brain. So according to you, who amongst your peers are asking the right questions or solving some of the biggest problems with leveraging a brain computer interface?
There are a lot of companies. So there are companies like Synchron, there are companies like Neuralink, and consumer electronics companies like Muse, OpenBCI, and Emotive. And there are like more than 500 companies worldwide. Not more than 500, I think more than 1,000 companies worldwide is working on this particular Neurotech space. And I have a lot of my friends are running companies, Neurotech companies in different parts of the world. They're coming up with some different, every company is coming up with interesting applications. Even though we hear more about Elon Musk's Neuralink, I think there are a lot more companies which are having some very advanced technologies than Neuralink. They're mostly into, as we already discussed, we had a very good discussion on non-invasive and invasive BCIs. Yeah, every company is trying to play its own game. They're building. Some companies are into consumer electronics, in some sort of meditation and mental health monitoring space. Some companies are into surgical, neurosurgical stimulation or deep brain stimulation. Some companies are even performing neurogaming side of things where they use BCIs to control games. I think that's one of the interesting arenas where nowadays companies are working on. And there are some open source communities like OpenBCI where they're providing DIY kits for BCI related applications. Yeah, there are some like as we already mentioned, there are some interesting companies working on different technologies in Neurotech, different products and different technology for monitoring and interfering with brain activity and stuff. I think yeah, the future is so exciting.
Every technology, when it's in its nascent stage, needs the support of the entire ecosystem. Support system for the government, from the investors, and largely a community. Because I guess that's the only way to drive the ecosystem forward. You're part of NeurotechX. So would you like to talk about the role of a community to drive this tech forward?
I think if you see history, like any technology that's been developed from being in the nascent research grade to getting commercialized, say it computers, say it internet, everything would have started by a group of people, some group of very passionate enthusiasts who want to build the future of humanity, and they work together on different technologies which contribute to the future. So that's how communities actually play a very interesting role because if you see Neurotech, majorly NeurotechX, so we have, as I already mentioned, we have around like 6,000 plus members where almost we are connected with people from Neuralink, people from other Neurotech companies, and we're all in a single group sort of thing where we work together to build technologies of the future. So that's the whole mission of the community as well. So it makes it easy for us to getting connected with people who are already working on it, people who are experienced, and people who are already in the field who have built some wonderful products in Neurotech. I think that's in that way communities play a very major role in bringing up the talent or in uniting the talent for building this futuristic technologies.
What's the single use case of a brain-computer interface that excites you the most?
So to be honest, when I hear the word neurotech, it sort of excites me to a level where like I can't even say it in words, but when somebody says neurotech or neurotechnology to me, it sort of very excites me at a very high level because the use case is majorly in terms of, so if you want to be specific in use cases, I could say neurofeedback is one thing that I'm super excited because quantifying the brain and sort of giving it feedback to get it into a normal state or getting it into the state that we want is very exciting. I think humanity has never seen that kind of a technology before. And so I'm really humbled and also blessed to have sort of got the opportunity to work on this technology and serve a lot of people. So that's one arena and also other applications. So brain-computer interfaces and building technologies using which we can interact with our surroundings using just by our thoughts is something that not just excites me, it excites everybody in the world because it looks like something from the sci-fi movies, but it's already being done and it's coming up very soon. And hopefully, we would like to be in the forefront for building such technologies that can impact people in the world.
So, what comes next for you, and what comes next for Neurostellar?
So we're very clear about our future roadmap. So for the first 3 years, we're going to put our head down and build this particular product very effectively. So we want to build a better diagnostic tool and better algorithms for sort of reading brain signals and detecting neurological disorders. After that, we'd like to enter into the psychiatry as well as mental health space. That's one arena that we're so interested in. And also our futuristic products will definitely include brain-computer interfaces that can get. So that's going to become like a mobile phone in the future where you have BCIs, you can sort of connect with all the things around you, right? So we definitely want to enter brain-computer interface applications and build technologies for different applications. So I'm very open and I'm just interested in this technology, and we are so like super excited about this technology. And our avenues are very open to different applications in the world. And we're starting in healthcare, but we definitely love to explore different kind of applications in the near future. just to say a brief things at the end, or sort of a brief conclusion. I'm always very excited about futuristic technologies because specifically in India, works on futuristic technologies are very less. We are trying to build something that is already being done in the US or Europe. We are trying to. We are always stuck in the software domain usually. So building something for the future, where we can build something from India, I think that definitely can be done if we, since now we are in a very hyper or super connected world where we get access to everything just through our mobile phones. So I don't perceive anything that's going to stop me, even though it has its own political, its access to resources and financials. It has its own problems of building futuristic technologies in India. But I think I strongly believe with a very strong persistence and the passion that we have towards building futuristic neurotechnology products, I think we'll definitely able to make it and build some interesting products in near future. I think yeah, I'd like to end with that, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Karthik. It was a complete pleasure talking to you, and I feel your excitement and I think we're in an exciting space. Almost all of the technologies are converging, and if you leverage that, you'll be able to create transformation or build things which will completely transform mankind. And I wish you the very best, and I hope that the government and the investment company comes together and nurtures or disruptive entrepreneurs, because it's them who are building transformation for India. And if we support them, we won't be just complaining that, why we don't have a global startup from India. We will definitely see a startup from India sitting at the global stage. So on that note, if you like to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.